feel like Gordon Bombay would have taken his career to even further heights.
Everything's flashy, everything's cocaine, everything's
Fun.
Open wide for some soccer.
I don't care what you think about what your personal thoughts are at home. I care that you hate the Cowboys.
Call this college rule.
Welcome, everybody, to the Sports Experience Podcast. I'm Chris. This is Dom. Give our social media accounts just a quick follow right there. Give our YouTube a quick follow and like on some of our stuff. We're trying to get this podcast cooking. And other than that, we record right here at Engle Studio in Tucson, Arizona. And you know what? Let's get into the episode, man. We got a good one.
Let's do it. We're back on the gridiron,
That's
Chris.
right.
And who do we got?
We're talking Jerome Bettis, one
That's
of the
right.
best in Dom's heart. He has a spot that will never go away.
Nope, never. Not ever. The bus. I love you. But Jerome Abram Bettis, born February 16th, 1972 in Detroit, Michigan. Oldest of three kids to Gladys and Johnny. As a youngster, didn't even play football. You know what his sport was, Chris?
Bowling.
That's right. I mean, he could have come up just like an Amish guy, you know, and had been coached by someone that got their hands stuck in the return machine.
I was thinking maybe a couple of White Russians, but
Yep.
you know what?
That too.
You plug the bowling movie of the weird white guy, and we'll go for it.
Near the In-N-Out Burger.
Near the In-N-Out Burger.
Oh, Donnie.
Are we going to get In-N-Out Burger?
Lives off Radford. No. A good day to you, sir.
Yep.
So, anyway, at this time period, his parents were very hardworking, but it was very tough to make ends meet.
Yep. Rough growing up.
Very rough growing up. This is the Detroit era of RoboCop because we need to name all our children Murphy because that was RoboCop's name.
It's true.
There was a crack house next door, and he ended up getting involved in that type of vocation, I guess we should say.
So, well, let's just say like freshman, sophomore year, high school, he joins the football team. He is kind of like looked at as kind of a star, but he has this almost like double life where he is selling crack outside of this house that's like either right next to or down the street or whatever the thing is. And it's almost kind of like you look at it where it's like he's definitely like probably living like a double life.
Well,
you know?
he basically said he saw one of his friends, they got rolled up on, he had his friend's bicep blown off in a shootout.
Yep.
And after that, he was like, whoa.
Yes.
Time to stop.
Time to stop.
But the fact that he didn't play, and he's a big dude, so the fact that he didn't play football until his freshman year at Mackenzie High School there in Detroit, his coach Bob Dozer said he came up to him and he's like, "You're Black Superman." Mm-hmm. Like,
Well, he asked him if he could play. He was just like, of course he could play for me.
there's always we could get rid of that kicker that kicks barefoot.
Yep.
But he's the best player in the state of Michigan.
Yes, that's what you look at. Some of these guys in their lives could have gone two different ways, and he literally goes from selling crack to he's number one running back in the state, and I think he's the number two linebacker in the state. And they were just like, oh yeah, that's probably the best thing that ever could have happened to him.
He actually said he was a better linebacker than fullback at the
saw
time,
that, yeah.
which I think is like, could you imagine him playing linebacker?
Yeah.
Because he's like, what, about 5'11", and at this
The
time,
speed, yeah.
At this time, he's about 250 pounds. At this time,
Yep.
And we'll get into, well, how large he gets, but yes, the best fullback in the entire state of Michigan, and he decides to go to Notre Dame.
Yep.
And enters a very stacked team, a couple years off the national championship. He's playing in a very crowded backfield, so he doesn't play a lot as a freshman. He had to compete behind Ricky Waters, Tony Brooks, Rodney Culver. Dorsey Levens transferred. He made a Pro Bowl with the Packers.
Yeah.
And then our guy, the Rocket, Spiderweb right
Oh,
there.
yeah.
Was there in 1990. Lost the Orange Bowl that year to Colorado on that Rocket Ishmael play. Just listen to that episode. It's a good one.
But then we get into his sophomore season, which
Holy
is
Santa
still
Claus shit.
I was just going to say, which is still in the books for Notre Dame for rushing or for all-around touchdowns.
So this is when I first kind of really got into college football, and my dad was an ND alum.
yeah, for
so
sure,
these
for
were
sure.
the teams I started watching. And Bettis was always like my favorite on these teams.
Yep.
So that season, he has 972 yards rushing, 16 touchdowns on the ground, leads the team, 4 receiving touchdowns, and his 20 are still a school record,
Yep.
even today, which is amazing.
And then he has 3 more in the Sugar Bowl.
So this is an interesting game. So January 1st, 1992, the Sugar Bowl. They're playing Florida. And Florida, I think, has lost one game or hasn't lost yet. Steve Spurrier came out before the game because Notre Dame I think they had lost a couple, 2-3 games during the regular season, and a lot of people didn't think they should be there. Before the game, he said, "What's the difference between Notre Dame and Cheerios? Cheerios belong in a bowl." And Bettis goes out and just says...
That sparked that fire.
Oh, my God. 150 on the ground, 3 tutties, and they're all like long runs. And you're seeing that guy's 255 pounds.
I was just going to say,
everyone.
And this is where he gets his nickname, the Bus, because you would think he is a short down, like 3 and dust. And no, he has these breaks where he's just running through people and just keeps going.
The difference between him and these larger backs that have come before him and come since, he has the quickest feet of any of them.
Yep.
His quick feet allowed him to basically not only make cuts, but also run around people too.
Yeah.
Like that was, you see this and you're like, that is not possible.
Yes.
That's not possible. They win 39-28. Going into the next year, he's sharing this. See, the thing why he doesn't win a Heisman Trophy essentially is he's sharing the ball with 3 other running backs in this offense. So the following season in '92, he has 825 yards and 10 touchdowns on the ground, 2 touchdown catches. And that year, Saturday after Thanksgiving, I was actually at the game at the Coliseum where they beat USC.
Oh, that's awesome.
My dad and I went to that game. I think Reggie Brooks had like over 200 yards.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So yeah, they beat him 31-23. 89 yards and a touchdown. They're basically thunder and lightning, him and Brooks. He's kind of the scat back. They won 10 games in a row. They go to the Cotton Bowl that year against Texas A&M, who was 11-0. And it was in this game that, even more so than the Sugar Bowl the year before, where you're like, he might not stay. Mm-hmm. He played really well. And I mean, this is Texas A&M, heyday of the Wrecking Crew, great run defense, just great defense overall. 75 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. And then he had a touchdown catch, too, from Rick Meyer. Mm-hmm. So they won 28-3 against the Southwest Conference champs. And after discussing it with his family, he decides to leave early.
Yep. Which you can kind of tell he's definitely, when you're going and you're going to be a first round back, you're essentially like giving up so much money not to go.
No, 100%.
It has to be.
Well, when you thought about the team the following year, there weren't a whole bunch of dudes coming back.
That too.
This was, Rick Meyer was leaving and everything. So
that too. So it is a conscious decision for definitely not to come back that senior year. He enters the draft.
He did get his business degree though.
Oh yeah,
a couple of years ago.
I saw that. I thought it was cool.
He came back and finally finished. So good for you, Bus. So goes to the 93 draft.
Yep.
You know who the first running back taken was?
No, I don't
We did
remember.
an episode on him.
93.
3rd pick, Garrison Hurst.
Oh, Hurst, yeah.
He was the first pick, running back pick. And then Bettis probably goes to the best situation for him to make it as a running back because he goes to the Rams with Chuck Knox.
And this is the L.A. Rams
They've always been in L.A., right?
Well, I just mean that before they go to Florida and then
back to my Oakland where nobody cared.
So yes, thank you. They went to Utah where they don't allow jazz. Dom's got stuff going off.
Sorry, I'm a watch.
But yeah, he gets drafted by the Rams, and you're right. Chuck Knox is probably the best coach where it's the philosophy is right into the type of back he is.
I could guarantee you if he went to another team, they would have tried to make him more of a fullback in an offense. They would have tried to make him more of a blocking back, like almost what Tampa did with Allstott when maybe they would, and we'll get into that later. But with Bettis, it's the perfect opportunity because Chuck Knox is like, you're my new Kurt Warner.
Yes.
You're my new every guy I coached with the Rams in the 70s. So he goes there and he wins Rookie of the Year his first year.
Pretty much that should be the stamp that you look on it. When he comes off of it, you're just like, oh yeah, he's Offensive Rookie of the Year. He has like 1,429 yards. He's all pro. Like, it's the perfect fit.
Led the NFL with 79 first down rushes and 38 runs of 10 or more yards.
Yep.
I remember they played the Steelers like week 2 or 3 that year. He just ran right through them. Like, they were a freaking sieve against him. Unfortunately, they go 5-11 because they don't have a quarterback.
They aren't a great team.
This is a recurring theme for much of this poor bastard's career.
Yep.
94, they go 4-12 because Jim Everett left. So TJ Rubley, come on down. Still makes the Pro Bowl, though. 94 has over 1,000 yards rushing. 31 catches a career. He's not Marshall Faulk, but if you're running shovel passes and screens, he's a reliable valve.
If you're playing to his strengths, he really is that guy that you want. We get to 95. They move to St. Louis.
Which he's talked about this. He was perfect fit in L.A. His personality. He said he was hanging out with Kareem.
I wanted to bring that up. Hanging out with Kareem and Magic, and he's like, and I'm a ladies' man.
Yes,
so
he is.
L.A. was his spot. Going from L.A. to St. This was the off season. I felt like this is where you see guys who have all of the tools. The only thing that messes it up is like off-field stuff.
Imagine being magically whisked away to St. Louis.
Well, so he's going to St. Louis. He's still on his rookie contract, and he goes, I've just been the best running back that you guys have had for the last whatever, and you're not going to give me a new contract.
And if Emmitt Smith doesn't have that freakish game against the Giants we talked about, he wins the rushing title as a rookie. Like, he deserves a new contract. Unfortunately, probably would have got it if they didn't fire Chuck Knox.
Yeah.
But they hire Rich Brooks from Oregon, and that's just like oil and vinegar. It's not even like Hugh Honey and Vic Vinegar. It's a terrible combination.
Well, he and this is what they said. It was one of the things where it's a horrible start. He's battling for a new contract. The new coach wants him to just show up and work. When he does, he tells him he's too fat. There's so many of these things that Bettis is just kind of like, I'm not gonna play 100% for you.
Which, you're treating me like garbage, and I'm the best player on this team.
Exactly.
And did you hear the Lou Holtz story? Where after that first game in Green Bay, where he did really bad, where he's like, I called Jerome and I was like, there must have been somebody wearing your jersey out on the field because that wasn't you. And he's like, I hung up the phone. I'm like, when Lou Holtz trolls you, you're at like less than zero. You are Robert Downey Jr. with blow all over your face.
I didn't even let him respond. I was just like, it clicked.
So they lose their last 7 games. Wait. They lost their last 7 in 94. 95, I think they started 6-0, 5-0, and they go 7-9. He had only 637 rush yards that year, and he was essentially phased out of the offense.
Yes.
He talked about that offseason retiring, going back to Notre Dame, and just doing his thing.
And just doing something else.
So that offseason, he knows he's not coming back.
Yep.
And I don't know if you ever saw Rich Brooks talk about this, but God, what a dick. He's like, you could say the way I treated him and where he ended up going, I'm the reason he's in the... And it's like, you bastard. That is some old white man logic.
Yep.
So the Rams make it no secret that offseason he's available for a trade. So there's a lot of teams that are interested in him. They choose as replacement Lawrence Phillips, who had more murdered people in prison than Pro Bowl appearances. Watch your Nebraska episode. That's a good one.
Good man. They asked, because sometimes organizations are actually cool, where they ask where you would prefer. And the interested teams were the Oilers and the Steelers.
One thing about the Steelers, though, is they probably would not have been interested
if thank you.
So they just won the AFC Championship. They have a great power back in Bam Morris. If you've never seen that guy's highlights when he was in Pittsburgh, go and watch him. That dude was a freak. He scored a touchdown in the Super Bowl. You're thinking this is the next guy.
Bam liked to smoke that devil's lettuce.
Not only liked smoking it, liked trafficking it in Texas in the 90s.
He was on that David Stoudemire kind of.
That is just some... Ooh, that was a lot of, I think it was 6 pounds you're trying to traffic in Texas in the 90s. And it's still not legal there. I guess the money's good, but man, anyway, cops
bust them
at a traffic stop. The Steelers are like, well, we need a power back.
Yep.
And it came down, like you said, to the Oilers and the Steelers. Go listen to our 96 draft episode. We kind of allude to this. The Steelers were actually thinking of taking Mike Allstott
Oh,
if
yes,
they couldn't
yes. If they
execute
couldn't
this
get-
trade, which that dude would have been just beloved because they would have given him the ball like they did Bettis.
And this trade went down, I think, either the day before or on draft day.
No, it was draft day. It was
Yeah.
during the first round. So what ends up happening is they make a trade with St. Louis. 420, Poetic Justice, Bam Morris. Thank you for your service.
Thank you, Pam. 420, poetic justice.
Oh, so Bettis and a third rounder from the Rams go to Pittsburgh for their 96 second rounder and 97 fourth rounder. You want to go into why the Steelers were the team they made the deal with?
Oh, well, what do you mean? Because he
picked the Steelers over the Oilers
because of their storied franchises. Essentially,
Yeah.
what I heard, he was just like, I wanted to go to a franchise that had been established, and I felt like he looked at the culture of the Steelers, and he was
Yeah.
like, that's kind of like fits me.
Well, the Oilers, I don't know if you know, they ended up because this trade didn't go through. They took Eddie George.
Oh yeah.
So it's like,
man.
it's like if there's consolation prizes, that's not
That's
the worst
pretty good.
one.
Yeah.
So in '96, he comes in, comeback player of the year, first team All Pro, 1,400 plus yards rushing, 11 touchdowns. And I did want to bring up one game this season, November 3rd, '96. The Rams come to Three Rivers Stadium in the ultimate revenge game.
They literally have video of him on the sideline like, you're done with me? You're done with me? And you're just like, yeah, that's the Bettis that you know.
They said I was done, over with.
Yeah, well, I do love the fact that you're like comeback player and you're like, he wasn't the problem.
No.
That's the thing that always pisses me off. You're just like, he wasn't the one that, you know?
The best part is in that game, he had a 50-yard tutty where he ran away from everybody, where it was just like, oh, I was fat and slow.
Exactly.
I don't
Exactly.
believe I think in that game, oh God, what was it? I don't think the offense, they only attempted 15 passes. They just kept
ramming the ball down their
This
throat.
is the time when the Steelers don't have a lot of
Yes.
great play at quarterback.
Yep.
They're 10-6. They win the division. Destroy the Colts, scores 2 touchdowns in the wild card game, and then
Yep.
they play basically Fog Bowl 2 Electric Boogaloo up in Foxborough and get the shit beat out of them. They couldn't do anything in that game.
No.
97 is probably his best season. Pro. This was one of my favorite seasons ever. Led the league in carries, career high 1,665 rushing yards, 7 touchdowns. He would have had more if his court. I think Stewart had like 10 on the ground that year.
And he didn't play the last game.
Yeah, he didn't play the last game against the Titans, or they were still the Oilers at the time. They go 11-5. They win the AFC Central. They beat New England in a very weird game, 7-6. I think they were on like their 4th-string running back, New England. Like, it was just a very bizarre decision-making game. And then they go to the AFC Championship the next week and destroy my soul because I lived in Denver at the time.
Yep.
Stewart Bettis had a great game. He had over 100 yards on the ground. Unfortunately, when your quarterback throws 3 interceptions,
You're not going to do anything. So the Broncos go on.
the next 2 seasons are 3, if you want to go in, are really shitty. Stewart loses his job again to Mike Tomczak. And mind you, he has 615 carries over these 2 seasons, 98, 99. He is running into 8, 9-man boxes.
Yep.
That is what is so fascinating. You have to understand. They know where the ball's going to go.
Yeah, they're stacking it for it.
And he's just running over people. Ray Lewis had the best description where he's like, it's like hitting a tree stump.
Yeah, no, seriously.
You can't get low.
You can't do anything about it.
Over 2,200 yards between the 2 seasons. In 98, they lost their last 5. Do you want to bring up the Thanksgiving game?
Oh, in 98.
98. Where he's calls tails.
I was just going to say, so they're going to overtime against the Colts.
Lions.
Lions. Okay. He gets, which is very normal because I imagine he's offensive captain or whatever. So he goes out to call the coin toss, and if you listen to the thing, it's just not a clear thing of him saying tails, but re-listening to it, you're like, I obviously heard him say tails.
Yeah.
There's not like, I get that it's like a stadium, it's muffled, all of that shit. He says tails. The ref says, all right, so he says heads, flips it, it goes to tails, and he's like, what the hell? Like, I called tails.
I think I set a record for expletives in a row
It's
at 11.
crazy.
I mean, I'm
because
just saying. I hope Phil Luckett. I hope you're servicing men outside of rallies right now.
It's crazy to think that it's still decided on that.
Yeah, so they just completely bomb out. The next season, it's even worse. 99, they lose 7 of their last 8, and basically they are in full rebuild mode.
Yes.
This is as painfully crappy and mediocre as they are now. This was like rock bottom for them. But 2000, they get Mike Mularkey as their new offensive coordinator. Or no. Gilbride is still there. Mularkey's the following season. But Stewart kind of comes on. And by that point, they finished 9-7 after starting 0-3. Bettis has over 1,300 rushing yards and 8 touchdowns. And the offensive line is now starting to get rebuilt because you got Faneca and the rest of those guys joining up.
And you start to see the Steelers of that good run of the 2000s starting to get built.
I don't know how we were sold fucking Kent Graham and Cordell Stewart, but come on, man. Oh, jeez.
2001, it's
this one breaks my fucking
1,000 yards, but then he gets a
Pro Bowl.
Gets a hip injury,
A groin injury, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think it was both. So I think
Yeah.
he had like one of those things where it's like nagging both injuries, where it's like one causes the other.
He had over 1,011 games.
That's what I mean. So he's out early and he's in sporadically.
Zaraway and Maafala did a good job though in
taking over
relief, and Mularkey designed a lot of quarterback using his leg stuff for Stewart to kind of mitigate, his limitations as a passer. They win 13 games. Everything is set for him. He doesn't play in the divisional round against Baltimore.
That's what I mean. They're still bringing him back slow.
Do you know why though? He was going to play in that game. The shot that they gave him for his groin hit a nerve.
Damn.
So I'll never forget before the game. So Zaraway played, and he played pretty well against Baltimore. They won 27-10. And then the next week, Drew Bledsoe comes in with a camera crew and
those Pats and those American Patriots.
I will never unsee that blocked field goal from that game, and I will never. That's crying game.
Brutal. It's brutal. So they lose AFC to the Patriots, and then you see him kind of. This is where
the next 2 seasons are rough for him.
I was going to say, he starts to get sporadic with injuries and stuff like this. And people start kind of saying, this is what we told you was going to happen with this type of back and all that kind of bullshit.
But he's already played a decade.
Exactly.
And he's played it without any quarterback assistance.
That too. So it's all him. It's
So in 2002, what ends up happening is Stewart is just so this is the end. Thank God they bring in American hero Tommy Maddox from the old XFL $1 million game in the arena.
Hero.
Go listen to our playoff episode on him, and their offense completely changes.
Yeah, it really does.
So they're a pass-first offense with Ward, Burris, Randall L., and Zaraway, because of his ability to catch the ball and is bringing more speed to the table, ends up seeing a lot more work than Bettis.
His role just kind of changes after this injury, where he is the kill the game out. He is you know what I mean? And he's getting less, like you said, the offense changes to a more pass heavy offense.
So they make the playoffs. He's outrushed that year by Zaraway.
Yeah.
He scores 9 touchdowns because who are you going to go to another goal line? But they win that insane game against the Ghostbusters.
Thank
Bettis.
you.
Then they lose the divisional round against the Titans. Did not watch that game live. You know why, Chris? I was busy wrestling a blind kid.
Oh, my God.
Had to watch it on tape. And
oh, man.
Joe Nedney, I hope you're with Phil Luckett, just doing stuff outside of rallies. You fake diving piece. You are like Gordon Bombay's ducks before they find their way.
Quack.
So he only had 4 carries for 4 yards in that. He was a spectator. That whole 2002 postseason. 2003, This is the Murphy's Law season. Everything that goes wrong as far as injuries, ineffectiveness. They bring him on late in the year, though, and he's still proven he can kind of contribute to the team.
Be in the team.
Ends up with 830 yards, 2003, 811 yards and 7 touchdowns rushing. They go 6-10. So they're picking 11th in the 04 draft, and there was a lot of speculation. I remember before, like when the regular season ended, before like guys free agency and stuff happened, they're going to take Steven Jackson, who was a really good running back on some really bad teams like Bettis was early in his career. But they signed Deuce Staley to be the starter, so they're bringing Bettis back as the backup.
A backup.
And Staley was, starting running back in the NFL. I mean, he still had plenty of tread left on the tires for them. But then they're like, oh, man, we should take an offensive tackle. We're like a right tackle away from building our own line. And they're like, no, we're finally going to give him a quarterback.
Yep. They decided to take old Ben, I'll take you in the bathroom, Roethlisberger.
Right. Our Messiah.
So, which was, again, the perfect quarterback for, I feel like, this system, all of that kind of stuff, where he had the big, powerful arm. He is like the quarterback that you want.
He was QB3 week 1.
Yeah.
So what ends up happening is week 1 that year is great. Do you want to talk? So they play the Raiders in the first week in 2004, and he has the most insane, because they're old. Staley is getting them. I think he had a couple hundred yards, he was doing fantastic before he got hurt that year. He's leading them up and down the field. Bettis is your closer. In that Raiders game, which they won, he had 3 touchdowns rushing on 5 carries for 1 yard.
So just to be clear, he averaged 0.02 yards a carry with 3 touchdowns. It's one of my favorite stats. It's so good.
All sports. It's so. I remember watching that game because they would only bring him in side the 5. Mm-hmm. So there were a couple runs he just got blasted.
Yep.
So the next week, though, they're prepared to just roll with Maddox and be like,
a
wild card spot will be nice.
Yeah.
He screws up his elbow against the Ravens. They put in Roethlisberger, and then they just don't lose after that game. Mm-hmm. Staley gets hurt. They put in Bettis, and he has a renaissance season. Goes for 941 on the ground, 13 touchdowns. What they essentially did the rest of the season as they kept winning was, let's just protect our rookie quarterback.
Yep.
Our offensive line's great. Our running game's great. Then go play action and just eat teams alive and let our defense. That was the whole game plan the whole season.
Mm-hmm. And it worked.
It worked. The divisional round, they beat. Only the Jets could have lost this game. If they had played anyone else, the Steelers would have lost. But Doug Bryan missed a field goal at the end of regulation. Then in overtime. Bettis had a huge TD in this game. They won 20-17. And then the following week, let's just say they ran 2001 back and lost 41-27
to the old Pats.
Yeah,
and to be honest, this is when you get to where Bettis, he literally
made Hines Ward cry.
At the end of this game, he was like crying. He was like, in his mind, he was like, I feel like this is my last game ever. He decided to do probably something that was smart, was take some time away before he made the decision. The things that got him to come back was Ben
promised him.
He's like, we're going to make the Super Bowl next year if you come back.
Where's the Super Bowl?
He had a new daughter.
That's who.
And then the Super Bowl is literally where he's from in Detroit. And that all of these things like together where it was the, you know what I mean? Where it's just like the soup that got him to come to the table, where it was just like all of those things with the quarterback that he finally has.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The one thing missing, so that he's going back for. So he's injured to start this year. Staley's injured to start this year.
Yep.
But they get Willie Parker off the practice squad. And there was like a 4-year window where that guy was just beginning this season where he was just one of the best running backs in the AFC. And fast. Mm-hmm. Like the opposite of Bettis.
Yep.
So he had over 1,200 yards rushing. Bettis is the closer. They start 7-2. Then they have that 3-game losing streak. And we get into, they're coming off his 3-game losing streak. And this is the iconic game for him. December 11th, 2005. They're in the snow at Heinz Fielding in Chicago. It's a bad weather game. And who do you need in your bad weather games?
I was going to say, because he works perfect for that. So he just has one of these games where he kind of takes over. And leading into the end of this season, I feel like he has a couple of them. So it's nice.
So what was it? The joke was the bus put his snow tires on.
Yep.
17 carries, 101 yards, 2 touchdowns. His last 100-yard game as a professional football player. There was the iconic moment. If you had a snapshot of one play in his career, they're on the goal line. They give it to him. You have Faneca pulling in front of him to the right side, and he meets Urlacher at the goal line
and runs him over. Yep.
Oh, God.
And this is when Urlacher's the top. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's literally, you're just like, yes, that's what I want to see. Week 17 against the Lions.
Yep.
41 yards, 3 TDs. Like we were saying, he is the closer that comes in, like literally red zone man, where you're just like, give it to him. He's just going to make it.
Well, at that point, he does not weigh 250 pounds anymore.
That's true.
It's like, his jiggling is almost hypnotic. Yes, it's like a lava lamp.
What's this for? I just felt like he needed to lose some weight. So good.
So the wild card, they play the Bengals.
Going in, they're 6th. So going through these,
they had
playoffs,
to win their last 4 games just to make the playoffs.
This is what I want to say. And going into these playoffs, they had to win every single game as an away team. So they meet the Bengals. They beat the Bengals.
Lead the team in rushing, touchdown in that game, win 31-17.
That's right. They meet the Colts. They beat the Colts.
Listen to that episode. Well, he plays a very interesting role in this game.
A scary, scary moment for them. They're up 3 points right at the end of the game. I think they're on like the 3.
Yeah.
And Bettis gets the ball, and I saw somebody talking about this. It wasn't Ben, but it was somebody. They were just like, yeah. Every single team would have wanted Bettis to have the ball in this moment. He hadn't fumbled for the entire year.
If they had called any other play, I would have lost my shit.
Well, it's like
why would you do that?
It's like the Seahawks with Lynch.
Yeah,
you know
exactly.
what I mean? It's like literally like that, where you're just like, what are we doing?
If Lynch had fumbled, you would have just gone, you know what? That is the worst luck ever.
But that's almost what happened to the Steelers, where Bettis fumbles, and then you have Big Ben, who's like, I'm getting you to the Super Bowl. We're going. And he makes something that I don't think a quarterback has ever done in their entire lives. He makes an actual tackle where you're like, oh my God. The Colts do march down the field and miss, I think a 41-yarder, which is
47-yard from Vanderjagt.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. The Immaculate Redemption.
I'm just saying. So that is one of those things that Bettis said, too, where he was just like, I can't imagine I fumbled, and then I literally turned around seeing Ben just like wrap him up, and you're just like, oh my God.
Pepper needs new shorts.
Yep. So they beat the Colts. They go to their first ever. They're going to Detroit. The thing.
No, they have another game.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. They go to the AFC. They go to the AFC against Denver, which I imagine was quite the contention in your house.
No, because I was in Hawaii at the time. So,
okay, wrestling blind kids in Hawaii.
Yeah, exactly. No, I you know what it's like when you wait 8 years for something to happen and it finally happens and you're like, felt pretty good. That day felt pretty good. Scored. To me, his touchdown it wasn't the capper like Ward's after it, but when he scored to put him up 17-3, that's when all those idiots at Invesco shut up.
Yep.
That took everyone out of it, and like 2 plays later, Plummer threw the pick to Taylor, and then Ward scored, and then the game was just over. And so they win 34-17, and where's he going, Chris?
He's going to the Super Bowl. He's going back to Detroit, and the thing that this is what I got ahead of myself there. What he kept saying before and during the game was just like, just get me there. Just get me to go home. I'm going home, baby. Goes to Detroit, meets up with the Seahawks, and they pretty much dominate this game.
Of all of their playoff games, they played the worst in this game.
But the Seahawks played so much
The Seahawks, Mike Holmgren, for whatever reason, just took the day off as far as coaching.
Yeah, really, though.
Sean Locklear got abused by Clark Hagans, and the refs couldn't stop throwing flags at him. And their kicker, I think, missed 2 field goals.
Well, I feel like sometimes the stage is just too big for guys, where it's just like you kind of look at that, and that's why sometimes Super Bowls are bad. You're right, where they didn't have a great game, and they still were just they like it felt like the Seahawks were like never in it. You know?
No, I mean they pulled when they pulled 14-10. They were driving, and then Hasselbeck threw that stupid pick to Taylor, and the Steelers, to their credit, they tried to get the bus a touchdown. Didn't end up happening.
Didn't happen, but
he was their closer at the end of the game.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. They ran out that clock, won 21-10. He ends, so he almost ended his career on an AFC loss. He ends his career on a Super Bowl championship. That's something that you can't even like. It's so good.
Yeah, no, I mean, and calls it a career. It like on the podium with Tirico and Dan Patrick, I think. So he finished his career as the 5th all-time leading rusher in the NFL. 13,662 rushing yards, 91 touchdowns, almost 1,500 receiving yards, 3 touchdowns. Did you know he's not even the leading rusher for the Steelers?
That was one of my favorite, because if anybody would have asked me that, I would have 100% been like, of course he is. No, he had like 3,500 yards for the Rams.
Yeah.
And I forgot who it was. Franco has literally him beat, and you're just like, that actually is kind of funny.
It's a strange... See, look at the starting lineup. Nobody ever knows he plays for the Rams.
I know.
Because he's so iconic.
Yeah.
Yeah. 6-time Pro Bowler, 2-time All-Pro, Super Bowl champion, and Pro Football Hall of Famer.
And just to end it on this, I feel like he has one of those NFL stories that you're like, oh yeah, if that was in a movie, I'd be like, come on, guys. That's why I love it. Just the coming back. Ben's like, I'll get you there, and then they come back and win that Super Bowl. Yeah, man, that must have creamed your jeans.
Yeah, I'm going to leave it at that. I mean, that's pretty much what happened. So thank you.